Black and brown students have highly been affected by systematic oppression for decades. Students have not only faced the brutality of the police, but they're continuously denied educational opportunities crucial for their development. Oliver Scholars prepares high achieving Black and Latino students from underserved New York City communities for success at top independent schools as well as prestigious colleges. Oliver Scholars provides crucial support for scholars so that they can realize their full potential and ultimately give back to the city in which they live, as well as the nation and the world. Joining us now to provide a little bit more on their view of the matter, I'm joined by the Chief Program and Equity Officer for Oliver Scholars, Dr. Deidre Franklin, and also student at Phillips Academy Andover, Jayden Collins. And welcome here to the Social Justice Forums.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And so I'll start with you first, Dr. Franklin. When we talk about the Oliver Scholars Program, we know that there is this educational gap that particularly affects, African Americans, communities of color. But Oliver Scholars does something in terms of bridging that gap and actually pushing them towards, a higher level of achievement.
Yeah, I mean, what we know at Oliver is many of our young people are in communities that the schools in their communities might not serve them to the best way that they can. And so with that, we identify young people who are high achievers and might not be receiving the resources that they need within their community, within their school community, to actually thrive. Many of our students do very well in school and are many times bored within their schools. And so Oliver wants to identify those young people, get them strengthened, and then have them apply to top private schools here in the city as well as around the country.
And Jayden, you're a part of the Oliver Scholars Program. Talk to me about your participation and what it feels like to be an Oliver Scholar.
Yeah, being an Oliver Scholar comes with so many benefits. You always have a community behind you, and they provide you with so many resources, so many academic opportunities, and many community service opportunities that really just help get you to that next level in your academic career and just being what it means to be like a scholar. And that helped me particularly because the rigor and the community that came with Oliver Scholars helped me get to the high school that I ended up being at, which was Phillips Academy Andover, and it helped me thrive there as well.
And Dr. Franklin, when we talk about the work that goes on with these young students, obviously these are high achievers, but even though they're high achievers, they literally have to go through this rigorous program. So give us a little bit about the rigors that they go through, because this is no easy walk in the park.
No, it's not actually. And as you stated, the students are high achieving students. However, the schools in which they hope to matriculate into have a very different way of engaging young people, which is actually interesting. And so part of our 14-month program, first and foremost, is to get the young people up and running to be able to take the entrance exam. So in essence, they're taking an SAT type exam in the 8th grade. And then after they take the exam, we engage them in all sorts of STEM programming, coding, language programs, in an effort to really have them understand ways to critically analyze the world that they're, moving through. That it's not as simple as giving them an article to read and sort of reflect back to the teachers, that they're actually reading articles and they're analyzing, they're annotating, and getting ready to be able to actually matriculate into these schools. Most of the schools have kids who have been in the schools since kindergarten. And so those young people have the resources and have already been engaged in this type of sort of academic engagement.
Jayden, when we talk about the rigors of the program, I've used the word the struggle is real. How real is the struggle?
The struggle is real, especially at Oliver, because once you get into Oliver, that's when it really begins for you and your academic career. I think what is special about the program is that it forces you to take that next step in your academic thinking and your critical thinking as well. And like before when you were in your regular school, you would receive all like these assignments, you do it, ace it. But when you enter Oliver, you're not just receiving, you also have to give yourself to the program and really um, find that scholar within yourself. And that takes a lot of of hard work and dedication that you didn't really have to use beforehand because everything would just come naturally. Um, so yeah, that's when it became rigorous, and the constant pressure on us to do better and unlock the potential that we had was it was very rigorous. So the struggle was real.
Yeah. Dr. Franklin, what is the message that you give to young people when they enter the Oliver Scholars Program? Because as we said, you're getting ready to prepare them for a high level of achievement, but not just a high level of achievement. You're really looking for them to perform at that next level when it's talking about college and then on in the world. So share with us a little bit about the message that you give to these young people.
I mean, I think first and foremost, we let them know that they are deserving, that they are valued, and everybody who's a part of the program, as far as the staff is concerned, has extremely high expectations of the young people. And Jayden can probably speak to the fact that we don't let them just get away with stuff. We are pushing, we're pushing, we're pushing. And interestingly enough, part of our strategy is to push them so that they fail. And many people say, why would you want the young people to fail? Well, we want them to fail because they have to learn how to recover from failure. That's a big part of being successful, is recovering from failure. And many of these young people have not failed. As Jayden said, they ace everything all the time. And when they matriculate into these schools, which are predominantly white schools, we want them to move into that school, first and foremost, knowing who they are, what they bring, and being proud of that, and moving through the environment as a scholar, as a leader, and someone who is really committed to their community and giving back to their community. So there's a lot of components that go into the program. That's not just the academic pieces. We do a lot of sort of social and emotional pieces to fortify the young people as well.
And when we talk about the educational gap between African Americans and those, those other students, and particularly white students, we know that the numbers don't lean in favor. Talk to us about underserved, students at this time, and what really we don't understand about the educational gap when it comes to African Americans and communities of color when it comes to education.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's about access. It's about access, it's about resources. And many of those resources are not necessarily, books and computers. Yes, you absolutely need that. But there are resources that the young people need. We need to fill them up. We need to make sure that they're strong enough to persevere and persist within many of the academic institutions that they go through. So whether they're going to a top public school like a Stuyvesant or a Bronx High School of Science, or if they're going to the Dalton School or Phillips Andover, they have to believe in themselves so that they can keep moving forward. You can be bright as you want to be, but if you don't believe in yourself, then inevitably you're going to have a lot of hiccups that could potentially put you in a bad space. And what we know out here in society, for Black and brown kids, there's not a lot expected of them. And so you've got to sort of fight against the systemic pieces, that our kids are up against in order to make sure that they have the tools they need to be successful. And they can, and they are. And Oliver has proven that.
And Jayden, for you, talk to me about what you feel like. What do you feel like now being an Oliver Scholar, going through the rigors of the program? You're up against, and sometimes you're the only brown skinned person in the room. What does it feel like going up against those who don't look like you? Do you feel equal? How do you feel?
I think in our current climate, it would be I would be lying to say that I feel like I'm on the same playing field as the white students that I learn with. But when when you have a program like Oliver, it comes with resources like mentorship, and I think mentorship and a sense of community is very um, essential when it comes to learning, because then you feel like you have a place and you feel like you belong there. And when you look back at how you got into the high school through Oliver and through the rigorous events, it is very easy to just lift yourself up and say, no, I deserve to be here. Even though the white students in my class can, like, they have resources, they have a plethora of opportunities. I know that I deserve my place there because of the challenges I went through and fighting against the systemic oppression, as you said before.
Yeah. And systemic racism is what we know occurs in the educational system. And I know Oliver Scholars is doing a good job of making sure that our young people really give back, not just to the city and the country that they live in. Talk to us about that give back component, Dr. Franklin, because you're encouraging them to better themselves, but then you're also encouraging them to also take their rightful place in society.
Right. I mean, a big piece of what differentiates Oliver Scholars from programs similar to them is our social justice community service component. And by community service, we mean in service of others. It's not necessarily going to the food pantry during Thanksgiving, although we do that as well. You know, it's really understanding that you have been given a gift. And as a result of being given that gift, it behooves you to be able to give back and to uplift and to pull up. That's the components that we try to encourage in our young people. You know, as you move through high school, as you move through college, as you move through life, it's on you to be able to continue to pull up and push people forward as someone did to you. So community service can be defined in a host of ways, and we do all of it. But I think the key piece there is to understand that you did not do this alone. You had a whole village, and as Jayden said, a community with you and behind you. And it's your responsibility to make sure, whether it's with Oliver or anywhere else, that you continue and keep the tradition going.
How does one go about becoming an Oliver Scholar? I think our viewers are probably saying, wow, this is a prestigious group of young people, but how does my young person have the opportunity to potentially become an Oliver Scholar?
So we have multiple ways of becoming an Oliver Scholar, actually being nominated. So guidance counselors in schools nominate, families nominate, and you can also nominate your child yourself if you go to the website oliverscholars.org and fill out a nomination form. And then we typically get a year, per year, about 1,000 applicants. And out of that 1,000, we choose 70. And that application process opens up in the fall. And we began reviewing applications around January to figure out who we will bring in to interview. So there's an interview process after the application process.
And for people who say how long this process takes in terms of being engaged in the program, participating in the program, talk to us about the duration and the length of the program.
So the program is actually 14 months, but this is after you spend maybe 6 or 7 months in the interview process. So you're in the interview process in the 7th grade. And then in the summer between the 7th and 8th grade is when you begin the process. You start the process in that first summer. And then you go into a Saturday academy all through your 8th grade. So they're not only doing their regular school, they're also going to our Saturday academy all day from 9 to 3 every Saturday, September through June. And then they go into their second summer. Once they've been accepted into their respective schools, they go into their second summer of rigorous academic programming. And then we have our graduation. And the graduation is a celebration of accomplishing the 14 months, but the relationship doesn't stop there. We continue to follow our young people through their high school experience to make sure that they have what they need and that they're successful.
Yeah. And so, Jayden, for you, as you've taken the mantle and been a participant in the program, talk to us about what it feels like now, having been a participant, and what you would say to anyone else who might be coming in as a word of advice.
I am grateful for the opportunity that I was given. As Dr. Franklin said before, it was a gift. And it's really special because you get to take advantage of that gift and help others. When you become an Oliver Scholar, you're not suddenly a part of, you're not suddenly on the same playing field as white students, or you're not suddenly bridging that educational gap. You have to take advantage of the opportunity you were given and provide back to your environment and your community. And I think a word of advice is don't be scared. Like don't be terrified of the rigor and the stress that comes with it, because once you get through those challenges, stuff at the stuff at like your high school and college and beyond, it becomes much easier for you. It becomes it becomes a second nature to be able to cope with many challenges that you might face throughout your career.
Well, Jayden and Dr. Franklin, thank you so much for sharing about the Oliver Scholars Program. Congratulations, Jayden, on the great work that you're doing, and Dr. Franklin for imparting and impacting our young people in such a great way. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.